Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Restrepo. I am CAM's exhibition manager and assistant curator. Today we have the great pleasure of going on a field trip to the studio of contemporary jewelry artist Claire Webb, an artist who spent formative years in Houston, but is currently based in upstate New York. Claire's over-the-top, skillfully executed, and playful art jewelry was featured in CAM's 2015 exhibition, Texas Design Now. Claire's work explores how optically rich material manipulations can evoke a sense of magic, mystery, and power. Her practice entails multi-pronged material and conceptual sets of investigations, alongside a desire to create poetic moments. She often destabilizes our understanding of perception. Claire is always experimenting, pushing the boundaries and possibilities of her craft. I can't wait for you to learn more about Claire's creative process as she explains the production of one magical object. Thank you all for supporting Claire's practice. I hope you find her inquisitiveness and complexity as compelling as I do.
Hi, my name's Claire Webb. I'm an artist from Houston. I'm currently in New Paltz, New York, getting an MFA in metal from SUNY New Paltz. And I wanted to talk today about a particular piece that I created and the creative process surrounding the evolution of that piece. As I have developed my own practice, and especially being here in grad school, I have become kind of more acutely aware of the intricacies of the process of taking something from an idea to a finished product, and then also the branches that kind of come off of that process that lead to new ideas. So sometimes people think that the idea for a particular piece of art comes just like spontaneously, and then the artist executes it perfectly. And that's the process. It's some kind of product of this kind of genius moment and kind of process. And that happens sometimes, but I think usually it's a messier and longer process that involves doing a lot of things that don't work until you get to the thing that does work. And doing those things that don't work lead to new ideas sometimes. And I think it's a really kind of fascinating and beautiful process, and so hopefully me talking about these pieces can illuminate that a little bit. So the piece that I want to talk about is this one. It's an untitled piece, kind of a gazing object. So the work that I've been creating lately has to do with perception and magic, and the ways in which we try to know things and understand the world in order to create some control over our environment and our bodies. And so I've been creating some works that are kind of gazing objects like a crystal ball, in which you kind of can look through layers or look into something reflective, usually having to do with light, to kind of create a kind of a transcendent experience, or to show you hidden truths or information. So this is a piece that's made of silver, sterling silver. It's a lot of silver. It's expensive. And so part of the reason I have so many objects relating to it is that I didn't want to waste silver or use silver trying to create the early stages of the object, because that would be really expensive. It is formed out of 2 sheets of sterling silver and then soldered together in a seam. It's really complex to do a piece like this, to get them to fit together perfectly and to kind of form these complex curves out of a sheet. So I'm really proud of this piece, and I love how it turned out. And I also really like kind of some of the stuff that I did surrounding it. So I'm going to put this one down. So I was looking for, when I was originally conceiving this piece, I was looking for a form that would fit in the hand or on the hand, something to hold and to look into. And I had this oyster shell that I've been keeping. I collect a lot of objects and materials. And I noticed that when I put it in my hand, that there's this kind of bump on the back side of the oyster shell that fits right in the palm. And when it fits right in the palm, it kind of sits like this, and it has a nice contour to the hand. So that was my starting point. I thought, okay, if this, fits the hand well, how can I translate this form into something different, into something, more abstract, more sophisticated, different materials. So I thought that, okay, maybe to get the form that I wanted, I would take a mold of the oyster shell and cast it in wax and go from there and try to carve that wax, right? So I used a product called Bellacold. It's a two-part kneadable mold making material, and I squished it around the oyster shell and created this mold, right? And you can see, I've opened it up. Here's the hole where I pour the wax in. So I bind this with rubber bands, pour the wax in, and then I got essentially a oyster shell in wax. So I carved the oyster shell. You can see the texture. It's from a wax pen. So I spent a lot of time trying to smooth it out. I kind of added some wax in different places, and thought about the contours of the hand and tried to make an object that worked. But by the end of it, it still looked too much like an oyster shell to me. It wasn't working. So I thought, okay, I need to start with, a different material maybe and make something that is really just about the hand and less about the shell. So I used an air dry clay that I really love and created a piece that still has kind of a shell-ish, kind of form, but that is contoured much more to the hand itself, right? So this is the form that I created that I wanted to make, right? And it's made of air dry clay. I have this line here to help me understand how I could separate it into two pieces, because I knew I had to form it out of 2 sheets of metal. So this is what I took into the studio, and I started to make different models to help me create the 2 pieces. So I took foil and put it on both sides and cut it, and then I had these foil forms kind of like this, right, that are these kind of sheets to help guide me when I was forming the silver. This is actually a piece of copper, and this was my kind of first attempt to try to use metalsmithing techniques to form the metal into this shape on top. And the reason it's silver is that, later on I was trying to think of ways that I could create a reflective, kind of large object without the really intense and difficult process of, forming silver, hollow forming. And I thought, okay, what if I could have a coating, right? And I'm in ceramics also, and I thought, is there a glaze? Is there a paint? Is there something? So I found this powder coat that is very reflective. It's a chrome powder coat. And I began experimenting with the powder coat on this copper, but also on ceramic. So this is kind of an example of an offshoot idea, right? So in the future, I am going to create some objects. I'm going to experiment with this this semester in coating these ceramic objects that also are meant to fit in the hand. This has a void inside, so it's like a vessel. And I wanted them to be reflective also. So I'm going to try to powder coat them and any other kind of reflective surface. So this is kind of an offshoot idea that I discovered while working on this piece. So then I formed the piece, and I was really lucky that it came together in one shot, that I didn't have to waste a lot. But you can see the difference between this object and this object. They have similar features, but they look significantly different. And that's because it's really hard to control, the forming process to create a very specific form. But I'm very happy with it. It is, it works well, and I find it beautiful. I kind of like that it's kind of puffier and thicker than this form anyway. So that's kind of the journey of that piece. And then next what I'm working on is this, and this is another form that I created in air dry clay. Right now it's covered in wax because I'm exploring the possibility of casting casting it in silver in pieces and soldering it back together, which also sounds like a pain to me, so I'm not quite sure whether I'll do that or not, but I'm trying to create those forms. But it's a ring, and it sits on the hand like this, so it has this kind of bulbous forms. It's also meant to be a piece like this that's kind of a gazing object, so it will be highly reflective. But I might use electroforming to create it. I might do casting, or I might try to form it again in silver. So that's kind of the evolution of this kind of collection of objects that I want to create that are, you know, like this, that are silver and reflective, like a gazing object. So hopefully that was interesting to you, and I hope you have a great day.